Dark bleatings, everybody. Sorry I've been away for a few weeks. I just had this constant run of illness for like 3, almost 4 weeks. The first week that I had almost a week straight of the most unbearable migraine of my entire life. Then I immediately just came down with one of the worst colds I've ever had, and that really knocked me out for almost a fortnight. And somewhere in there I also just had a random bout of being sick. So as you can imagine, and I don't think I'm being dramatic at all, I naturally assumed that the fates had aligned to take me out. You know, rid the world of me and my incessant talking about zombies, which I haven't really done on this channel, but I could talk all day about zombies. And speaking of, let's go on to the topic of today's video, which, inspired by my recent circumstances, I've decided that this video is going to be horror novels that revolve around some sort of illness. I love apocalyptic fiction, and a lot of apocalyptic fiction starts with a virus or zombies, it becomes zombies, whatever. This list is going to be very light on the zombies because if I was going to pull in all of my favourite zombie books, the whole video would be about zombies. I'm going to make some zombie content at some point. Let me know what you want if you're looking for recommendations, because when I say I'm obsessed with zombies, I mean I'm obsessed. I could give you books, comics, film, TV, games, board games, video games. Yeah, let me know what you want for that kind of content if you're a zombie nut like me, and hopefully I can give you some suggestions. I've also tried to veer away from just flus. I do have some on here, of course, because there are some like major ones and I didn't want to miss them out, but I've tried to be a little bit more weird with this list, just to give you more of a mix of things. So my perception of illness then, shall we say. So let's get the obvious one out the way first, because you cannot have a list about illness and books revolving around illness without bringing up The Stand by Stephen King. I have talked about The Stand in a bit more detail in a previous video. I ranked all of the Stephen King novels, and so of course I had a little bit more of a detailed discussion with myself about this book. So if you don't know the plot of The Stand, if you never saw the mini-series or you've never read the book or seen the recent series, which I haven't seen, this is about it's basically a super flu that escapes a lab, and it spreads incredibly quick, and it's really, really severe. It takes out like 99% of the human population, and then we're dealing with the aftermath for the people who have survived. Now, there's a big host of characters. If you're a character-centric reader like me, I really think that you will love this, because even though there are a lot of characters, they're so distinguished that I personally didn't get confused or like lost or forget who was who or whatever I was reading. It's a very big book. It's perfect if you're looking for a story in a world to just get lost in for a little while, especially if you're like me and you really enjoy stories about the demise of most of humankind. Post-apocalyptic is my favourite genre, and I wonder why that is. But let's move on. So yeah, this is a really great read. It's the obvious one to put on the list. So yeah, I would be disingenuous to not include it. And I've got one more Stephen King book, and I don't like to like get the Stephen King out of the way, but it's just whenever you see any sort of horror lists, and I'm guilty of it, Stephen King always makes an appearance, and there's many good reasons for that. It's just that Stephen King has been talked about to death on YouTube, so I'm trying, and I've already done 8 videos on Stephen King, ranking Stephen King books, so I don't want to be adding too much to it. But Cell as well is another sort of post-apocalyptic story. If you've seen the film and not read this, I said this in my other video, give the book a try. I personally thought the movie adaptation went a bit awry. I prefer how things go in the book. This is a really interesting premise, and it was sort of Stephen King's take on zombies, and inspired by, I think it was inspired by The Crazies by George Romero, the movie. So this is about a sort of pulse that goes out. Everyone's phone rings, and everyone who answers sort of experiences this pulse, and it turns them into what is essentially living zombies. It's really fun. It's a really, really fun book. Very fast paced and like a quick read, considering it's, you know, your average length for Stephen King's are probably somewhere around 500, about 400 pages. A little short for Stephen King, you might say. So that's another really great one if you enjoy good old Uncle Stevie there. Next up, I don't have a physical copy of this book. I read it as an ebook. It's an indie horror novella by a writer called Mark Towse, who I honestly think everyone should be checking out. Mark Towse, he is so talented and his books are so fun. And the one I want to talk about is called Nature's Perfume. So it's about a group of four, they're two couples going on a little trip, and they go into the rainforest, I think, a rainforest. I'm a little bit sketchy on the details now, but I remember the main point of this. And there's something up with the plants there, and the plants and the flowers that they surrounded by have a very peculiar effect on them, and things very quickly sort of deteriorate between the people in the group. It's a really, really great read. I don't want to say too much about it because it's a novella, so it's obviously quite short and you haven't got a lot of time to discover the story for yourself, so I don't want to give too much away, but I would really recommend that one if you enjoy sort of like a nice lush setting as a background for your horror. And Mark Towse writes characters so well, I honestly, like, he's one of the best writers at it in my opinion. So yeah, you should check that one out if you're looking for sort of a quicker little sting in the tail kind of read. So next up on this list, and you might have a case to argue about me putting this on here because it's a bit out of left field for a list about horror novels around illnesses, but I want to include Dr. Jackal and Mr Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson, or is it Robert Louis Stevenson? I'm not sure, I'm sorry, you can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Let me know which one of those it is, I'm not sure. This was first published in the 1880s, and if you don't know the concept, it's about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, wildly different personalities. Mr. Hyde always seems to be on a tear, very scary person. And you know, this did I already say it's a sci-fi horror? I'm sorry, I'm still not at 100%, but I really didn't want to miss another week of video, so here I am. I'm really doing my best, thanks for bearing with me. As if you're like me and classic literature tends to trip you up a little bit because of the language and everything. I haven't read this in a while, but I don't remember having to like deeply focus on understanding the writing style or anything. There are some classic works that I really, really have to engage like my entire brain to make sure I get everything I can out of the actual writing. The further back we go, the harder I find that. I think I've gone back as far as you know, the early Gothic works like the Castle of Otranto. Yeah, Otranto, the Castle of Otranto, and I had to, you know, really think about what I was reading. But then once I get into it, I'm okay. This is a short read, and it's not like difficult to decipher. It's a, you know, lovely piece of classic work. So I can't really say why I would put this in the illness category without like a spoiler, which I don't know if I can spoil it at this point because there's been so many iterations of it that if you haven't read the book, I'm sure that you know Dr. Jekyll Mr Hyde, but I'm just going to stop talking about it there just in case. The next book on this list, and I talked about this in my apocalyptic fiction video, is Sealed by Naomi Booth, so I won't talk about it too much because I talked about it in more detail on the other video. I'll link it in the description if you're interested. This is about a very weird condition, but it's a pandemic, it's spreading everywhere, and it's called cutis or cuties, I'm not really sure how you say it, but basically it's a condition where your orifices just start growing over, like skin starts growing over them, and it, you know, is killing people because eventually, you know, you won't be able to breathe or whatever. And it's obviously horrible as well because people are going deaf or blind or, you know, whatever. And the central story revolves around a pregnant protagonist who's moved to this little town with her husband because they don't think that the condition has spread there yet. And, you know, the nightmare that presents for a heavily pregnant woman, which I'll not go into anymore. So this, I mean, this is sort of an illness story and also a pregnancy horror, which, so it's like a double whammy of things. It's really good. It's not even 200 pages. It's very short, so a quick read, and I thought it was quite different for something that's like, oh, it's also in the apocalyptic sort of category as well. So this covers a lot of bases for your horror subgenre, so I would recommend this one. I enjoyed it. Next up on the list is a bit of a weird one. If you read this book, you'll understand why I've put it here. It's not like illness, but you'll see what I mean. I wouldn't put it in the same vein as Dr. Jackal and Mr Hyde at all, but there's a sci-fi element to it, which is where I've decided to plonk the illness part of the theme of the video into the book. Oh, I haven't said what it's called. Gone Where the Goblins Go by Matt Betts. Sorry, I recently read it, and it was so strange and interesting, and I was really engaged with it. It's sort of a blend of sci-fi, horror, I'd say adventure fantasy even, and it's set on a backdrop of the characters are in sort of a war-torn place, like there's an active battle going on, and there's just a whole bunch of stuff. So we have this protagonist called Tilly, who is an ex-military pilot who gets hired for a job to go find something with a team of soldiers or mercenaries or whatever. There are these labs known as wheels, and one of them has gone missing, and they need to go find it. And they end up in this place, and there are some very strange humanoid creatures around. And I don't want to say too much about the book, but I really enjoyed it. We're kind of going back and forth between the present day and then Tilly's memories as well, and there's a beautiful sort of circular narrative structure to it. Really interesting. And this is like an odd thing to say about a book, but I feel like if you're a fan of the older Final Fantasy games, the structure of this will appeal to you. I can't really say why without spoiling the end of the book, but I'm talking, you know, Final Fantasy sort of 6 to 10. I don't really like them after that one. If I'm after 10 was the beginning of the end for me, if I'm being honest. But that's a topic for a different day. But yeah, that's what I was thinking of as I was reading the book, is it was reminding me of sort of the adventure and the boss setup kind of stuff. So yeah, really enjoyed it, and I would recommend that if you're looking for something that's sort of a blend of a whole bunch of genres. Yeah, really weird and a great read. Next up, let's go ahead and throw Paul Tremblay's Survivor Song in here. This is zombies. Really enjoyed it. It's got a very bleak, dark but amazing introductory chapter. I was so hooked. Paul Tremblay is so talented, man. I'd love to see films of all of his books made. I know Knock at the Cabin was based on The Cabin at the End of the World. I personally prefer Paul Tremblay's book original version to the film, but I did like the film. But this would be great on the screen as well. I've talked about this in my apocalyptic fiction video, so I'm not going to talk about it too much here, but there's a virus. We're following some characters that I very deeply cared about, and I had no idea where this was going to go at any time either, because he's kind of not, he doesn't tick the usual narrative structure boxes of sort of a zombie or a virus story. But yeah, this is a really great read, and it's a contemporary read as well. It's quite new in the grand scheme of book releases. It came out in the last 5 years, I think. This is really great. I just, yeah, really like it. So trying not to waffle too much. Okay, next up, I'm going with a novel that deals more with mental illness than physical illness, but there's quite a lot to this book, and it's Greyfriars Reformatory by Fraser Lee. I really like Fraser Lee. I read another book of theirs called Hearthstone Cottage last year as well, and that stayed with me for a really long time. And considering the amount of review requests I get for Happy Goat Horror, it's quite impressive that something that I read like when I started the website, basically, I think I reviewed that a year ago, and I still think about it quite often. Yeah, Hearthstone Cottage is a great book. It just doesn't apply to this list. But Greyfriars Reformatory is about a woman who goes to a girls' reformatory, and it's supposed to be to treat mental illness, and there's a small group of women there, or young women, and hideous things are happening. Hi, Loki! Hello, bird, come on in. So normally I don't really enjoy horror stories that heavily feature mental illness or revolve around mental illness, and that's for a few reasons, and I'm not going to get on a soapbox about it or anything like that. I have an issue with the way that mental illnesses and people who live with them are depicted, because the general representation of this seems to lean very heavily into mental illness is the villain, or a person living with it is the villain. It's yeah, I'm not gonna go off on a wild tangent about that, but I just have an issue with it. And the other thing that bothers me is that I think that it's very often used as a really, really lazy plot device, and it's inserted as a twist when you can see it coming a mile off. So I just don't find those stories interesting normally. You know what I mean. This is more in film than in book for me, but I have seen 4 movies that I can think of off the top of my head right now where it's about someone who's basically being terrorized by another unseen person. No one believes them. Everyone thinks that they're nuts. There doesn't seem to be any evidence of a break-in when someone's been in their home, or they're leaving scary shit, writing stuff on their mirrors and all of that. And then in the end, it turns out that the victim was actually the perpetrator all along, and it was one of their alternate personalities, you know, doing all of this stuff to them, and they didn't remember. And yeah, I've seen that so many times that the second I see that flagged as the second I see a character that's being treated for any sort of mental illness in a film, I'm like, well, that's where that's going, and it always is. So yeah, I find those things on top of that. I just have some issues with representation and realism, and, you know, I mean, if you're gonna do that, maybe you should get someone who lives with the particular disorder as a consultant on your script so they can help you write something that's not stupid. Yeah, as well as that, I just don't usually enjoy those narratives because I don't think that they're very well done. However, Greyfriars Reformatory, sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent there, didn't I? Greyfriars Reformatory didn't tick those crappy boxes that I don't like. I wasn't sure what was going on at any point, but I was very satisfied with how it ended, and I really enjoyed the characters and how everything went down. So yeah, for me to enjoy a story that starts with someone going to an institution of for a mental health reason, I was quite impressed with it, and I really, you know, I would recommend it. Sorry about how rambly I got. I thought that I was feeling like a lot better than I'm actually feeling, and I'm struggling way more than I thought I would to talk for a prolonged period of time, which isn't normally an issue for me, as you probably know. Next up, I'm going to be really brief about this one because I've already discussed this book at more length in my horror novels that actually scared me video, but we've got Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin. It's about a lady called Rosemary who is pregnant. She lives in an apartment building with her husband. She makes friends with the neighbours, and there's just something amiss with this pregnancy. If you don't know the story, I really recommend reading it. It's such a great book. Now, I'm not suggesting that a typical pregnancy is an illness by any means, and before I'm sure that I'm including this, that seems implied, but I would argue that Rosemary's pregnancy could be viewed as an illness. It's very abnormal and scary, and so yeah, I would definitely throw this one into the ring for this theme. Next up, this might seem like a very weird choice for this list, but hear me out. Horns by Joe Hill. So this isn't, you know, like a flu or, you know, a bizarre pregnancy or anything. This is about a guy named Egg who wakes up one day and he can hear the thoughts of everyone, literally everybody. He can hear every thought that Editing Kaylee here to correct myself. He cannot hear the thoughts of the people around him, but when he talks to people, they can't help but be completely honest with him, and they're highly suggestible. So if he suggests something to them, they'll do it. If he asks them a question, they have to give him the most brutal, honest answer. You know, it starts as kind of fun for him, but then it starts to change him, and he starts to really struggle, and he starts learning things he doesn't want to know, and it's just this whole internal monologue, basically, this book about all of this stuff. It's as I would put this as like a sort of dark fantasy horror even. It's very this does belong in the horror genre for sure, but I feel like it has elements of other things. Joe Hill, if you don't know, is Stephen King's son, and I really enjoy his writing. I find that he's a little bit similar to Stephen King, but there's much more of a fantasy flair to his horror than with Stephen King's. He does definitely have his own style, and it branches out into totally bizarre, weird stuff. So I would really, really recommend this if you haven't read it. It's such a fun read, and you can really put yourself in Ig's shoes and, you know, start trying to figure out how you'd handle this whole affliction. That's what I'm going to call it, just an affliction. And last on the list, and I mean, you really can't compile a sickness horror list without including Nick Cutter's The Troop. It's Parasites. It's Parasites. I didn't realise how much I love parasite horror until I read this. It is disgusting, though. I mean, brace yourselves, because it's disgusting, and the reason it's disgusting is, use your imagination for parasite stuff, but also Nick Cutter is a very good descriptive writer, so my stomach was turning over so much. If you're sensitive to animals getting hurt, there is a very unpleasant section in this, but if you use the website doesthedogdie.com, it will give you the details, and I think it tells you where in the book it is, so you can skip over it. I winced my way through it all, but it didn't detract from my enjoyment of the book. But animal stuff is a hard read, so I just wanted to flag that up. But yeah, I really love parasite stuff, and I can't believe that I haven't read more. Oh my god, I forgot about a great book. Oh, this is meant to be the last book on the list, but okay, so get this. This is a really, really great book, and it's one of my favourite on this whole list, and one of my favourite reads of several years, and it's really great. It's Boy Scouts on an excursion with the Boy Scout leader? What's the leader of Boy Scouts called? Is there a term? I just realised I have no idea. But they go to an island, and then they're confronted with a parasite, and it's really, really dangerous and really contagious, and yes, all of like the really fun stuff that you would want for a story like this is in here. I'm just going to throw one more in actually while I'm here, and people are going to be mad. Oh yeah. Dreamcatcher by Stephen King. Holy cannoli, I cannot believe that I compiled this whole list and I completely forgot about this one. Now, a lot of people do not like this. I'm not going to go on about it because I talked about it at length in my ranking Stephen King videos. But if you've ever heard the term shit weasels, it's from this book, and I see why people make fun of it. But this is Parasites, but I don't want to spoil it. A group of friends go to stay in a cabin. It's kind of a regular thing they do. They go out into the woods, they stay in the cabin, they drink beer, they go hunting, they just spend some bro time together. And then a stranger comes out of the woods, and there is something really, really wrong with him, and then they're all in danger. That's all I'll say about it. I don't know why people seem to dislike this book so much. I loved it. I absolutely loved it, but it definitely belongs on the list, so I'm sorry for forgetting it earlier, but I know that's 3 Stephen Kings, but you know, I guess he does sick really well. That's my list. I'm sorry for being a bit like out of sorts and ramblier than usual for this video. I didn't realise that I'm still kind of not feeling up to making a video, I don't think, but I hope that this was okay. I'd love more suggestions, because I'm currently on a hunt for pregnancy themed horror, and I would love more like sickness themed horror. I really, really enjoy that as a subgenre. At this juncture, I would prefer not extreme horror suggestions, just because I'm still scarred from my last video of a bout of reading. But yeah, I'll put them, if you do have extreme horror recommendations for like pregnancy horror or sort of illness themed horror, I will add them to my list, but I might save that for a whole other little project, but I'd really appreciate that. Yeah, hope this was okay. I hope I didn't come across half dead for the whole thing. Hope you're reading some really scary illness themed books, and that there was something here that you haven't heard of that you might like to pick up. And I still don't have an ending for my video, so I'll see you next time, and please